sure you've all seen Jason's Atwell around campus, but I have found out some interesting things about him. Jason worked in college admissions before coming to Erickson in 2004. He is the eldest of 7, all boys except for 1 girl. Can you imagine what that girl felt? He earned a master's degree in marketing and communication in 2002 and loves snow skiing, singing, and music in general. His talk today should be of importance to each of us. When we all signed the residence and care agreement, we were so busy thinking ahead to our move into Windcrest that signing our name to a long document was just paperwork. But it certainly was not. It is a legal document. Jason is going to review this document with us. So hopefully by the time he's finished, you will all know precisely what we signed. Hope you brought your agreement and highlighter, and there will be time for questions also. Jason? Okay.
My sister is very well taken care of, I want you to know. She was number 2, and then 5 boys after her. She always got her own room. We always had to share. She was very, very spoiled, but she doesn't act like it. She's one of my dear friends to this day. And I wish you could have been in my kitchen last evening when all 6 of us, my wife and me, and our 4 children, were having a little dance party in our kitchen before dinner. We love music, it's always on in our house, and so that is definitely true as well. I will not be singing this morning for you, however. So a couple things I want to start off with as introductory comments. And I really appreciate, Ann, what you said. The move into Windcrest is often one of the most stressful times that you can remember. There are so many things going on, there are so many balls in the air, and you just know you have to sign something, and so you're just kind of going through it. I don't think most people sign it blindly, but you may not have been able to read every single word and all those kinds of things. There are 9 years of contracts at Windcrest. All of those years are just a tiny bit different. They're almost all the majority of what you find in your residency care agreement is pretty similar to year after year after year, with one exception, and I'll talk about that. But it should be known, you are held only to your contract that you signed. So when you moved in, the document that you signed that you have a copy of, and that Windcrest retains a copy of, is the actual document that you are held to. If it changes the next year, and there's a policy difference or something is going to be different, that doesn't mean anything to you. And there are really not a whole lot of those at all, maybe just little things here and there, but I wanted to make sure you knew that your contract is your contract, and it doesn't matter if anything else has changed, that's the one that you're held to. One of the things that you will find on the front of the contract, no matter what year it's from, and this is what the front of it looks like, there's a little paragraph on the bottom, and it says, this matter, this document, involves a substantial financial investment and a legally binding contract. In evaluating this document and the contract prior to any commitment, it is recommended that you consult with an attorney and financial advisor of your choice, if you so elect, who can review these documents with you. We put that on there because we never want this to be a secret. We don't ever want it to be something that we're hiding and hoping that you'll sign and then we shove it into your file and then we can have you go out of our office and go about your day. We really do want you to know what's in here, and oftentimes there are people who may have some experience that can really give you some better counsel on what you might find in here. Many of you have done that, which I think is good. And it's not too late. It's still okay for you to be able to share this document with your family, with your attorney, with your estate planner, whoever it is that you think might benefit from knowing I think will be really helpful for you. And I would recommend, maybe more than anybody else, I think it's really great for you to have a copy of this given to your family. Maybe it's the executor or the executrix of your estate. I think it's just helpful for them to have, you don't have to, they're not, there's no requirement with that, but I just think it's a good practice to do. I mentioned earlier that there is one massive difference between the contracts that all of you in this room would hold on to. And that is that some of you, and the majority of people that live at Windcrest, have a contract that guarantees a 100% refundable entrance deposit. There's another group that is continuing to grow that would hold on to an agreement that is a 90% refundable entrance deposit. So there are two different, pretty significant groups of people that have contracts that would be 100% refundable and 90% refundable. That being said, I'm going to talk a little bit about similarities between both, things that aren't different between the two, and then I want to talk about what is different between the two, and then at the end I want to have questions. And I think as I move through, what I have found is as I share information, I'm probably going to answer a question along the way, but that way we'll streamline what I'll share, and then as you have questions, I can certainly answer those for you. So if you have a question, please hold it to the end. But if you're like me, I always forget 15 minutes later what I was going to ask. So just jot it down on the front of your document or on a scrap piece of paper there, and I'll make sure that I answer it for you. So let's start with the similarities. What is similar, what is not different between the 90% and the 100% document? One similarity is that the state of Colorado regulates our community and every other continuing care retirement community. And they have a statutory law in place that binds Windcrest to give back the entrance deposit, regardless of whether it's 90% or 100%. We have to give back the entrance deposit within 180 days. Here's the important caveat: within your lifetime. If somebody moves into Windcrest and then 2 years, 5 years, 10 years later, they leave Windcrest and they leave while they are living to live somewhere else, we are bound by Colorado state law to give back the deposit within 180 days. And there are no terms for that. It doesn't matter if something sold or something didn't sell. We have to give that refund back. And so that's one thing that is the same no matter what, because it's a statutory law. One other similarity is that we offer at Windcrest what is called the Home for Life commitment. That has not changed between the 100% and the 90%. Our Home for Life commitment is that as long as you are following the terms of this agreement that you hold in your hands, if you should run out of all of your own assets outside of Windcrest, something has happened to cause you to spend down your assets in the bank, you tapped into your IRA, your 401k, you had to get into that CD, you start spending through those assets and you come to zero and you hold nothing else in the bank. That is the time, actually a little bit before that, is when we would love for you to come to Craig and Karen in our executive office and our administration office and share with us, I'm spending through my assets because of X, and it looks like I may need to open up my entrance deposit. The way that I usually have shared it is that that is your money that you gave us before you moved in. And so we want you to have the right and the privilege of being able to spend that down. That's your money. So you would spend that down month by month by month. And if you have nothing left in the bank, and you have nothing left in your entrance deposit, whatever is not met in your fixed monthly income, your Social Security or your pension or both or whatever's coming in, Windcrest is going to pay the difference on a monthly basis, regardless of where you live. It is our obligation to pay the difference between your regular monthly income and what your cost of living at Windcrest is. That is not the reason why people are moving to Windcrest, but it is a huge encouragement to know that when you lay your head down at night on your pillow that we can't come to you and say, sorry you ran out of money, go find a different place to live. That's not who we are, that's not how we operate, and I'm super glad that I get to be in a sales department that can share with people, we're kind of giving you a commitment for a peace of mind for a home for life. There are conditions around that. If you go to Black Hawk next week and spend all of your assets, you have terminated your ability to spend down your entrance deposit because you're using them for something that you didn't need to. While I'm at this point, I'll tell you a common question that we hear from prospective residents and from residents alike is, are you saying that I need to ask permission before I spend my money? And the answer is absolutely not. There is what we call the minimum financial criteria to live at Windcrest. We're doing our due diligence before people move in. And you may remember having given us just a statement of your accounts so that we could do our financial qualification process. There's a standard, and some people come in right at the standard. Some people come in way above the standard. Some people come in the middle of the standard. But there is a standard. For the person who might have $10 million, they're going to have a little bit more of an ability to spend their money because they're not going to reach that minimum financial standard for quite a while. If you're someone who is concerned about that, we can always have that conversation. But if you know you have $50,000 left in the bank and that is it, and you want to give $25,000 of it to a grandson for going to college, that is not what the contract would allow you to do. That's divesting yourself of assets that we qualify you to have in order to comfortably live at Windcrest. And so there are some terms around that, but there is a section of your contract that is called financial inability to pay that goes through that pretty clearly for you. There are 15 sections of the contract, and I thought it would be better if I didn't go through every one of them one by one, but really hit some of these highlights. So that's a big one. And again, if you have a question about that, we'll come back to it too. Something else that's not different for anyone that's in this room today is transferring and utilizing the services available to us at Mill Vista Lodge. We are a continuing care retirement community. It doesn't matter what kind of contract you have the right and the privilege to use the services that are provided in our continuing care neighborhood. There is a section in your contract about joint residency. And one other very common question is, if I move into Windcrest as a couple, will my entrance deposit be refunded if somebody moves out or if somebody who has passed? And the answer is no. That deposit is always held intact until both people have left. The most common reason why people ask this question is if two people who wish to remain unmarried decide to move into an apartment home together here at Windcrest. And that is perfectly fine with us. However, if one person brought the deposit with them and the other person did not, but the person who brought the deposit leaves Windcrest first, whether through the events of their passing or their move out, that deposit stays intact for the second person, even though they didn't pay it. It will go back to the person who did pay it, but not until that second person is gone. And so a lot of people have a question around, when does that refund come? How does that deposit work? And it's always when the second person on that agreement has left Windcrest is when it will be paid back. There is a form that you always sign alongside of the residence and care agreement, and this is the same for both contracts. It's called the refund of the entrance deposit form. That is your designation to Windcrest where you want that refund to go. So in the case of those joint residents, the refund form would designate to our finance team, here's where that refund goes. It goes back to the estate, it goes back to a trust, or it goes to your beneficiary. Some people have said, I have 4 children, and I'm going to give 25% of this deposit to each of them. Some people have said, I'm going to have it go all to my estate, and the executor of my estate is going to mete out my wishes based upon my last will and testament. Or I am signing the form that has this deposit go right to my trust, and my trust will now have those assets back in it. And so those are the three different ways that you can use. So there's always a way for you to designate where that refund goes, and it's on that refund of the entrance deposit, and it doesn't matter what contract type that you have. The other thing that is similar about both of our contracts is the monthly service package. There's no difference if you are paying, in what you are paying, if you are on a 90% refundable entrance deposit or a 100%. They're the same. The terms of the monthly service plan is also the same, meaning that we still want you to pay the same amount. We want you to pay at a certain time of the month. If you're gone, you get the benefit of our non-occupancy credit starting on day 11 and then going forward from there. So the monthly service plan includes the same for both, and it is what is covered. The most important question that we get, and that many of you asked me before you moved in, does that ever change? And you know well that often we will look at it every single year and then increase that rate if we need to for the operating income for our community. Most people say, why does that have to change? And it doesn't matter if you live at Windcrest or if you're still living in your house. I'm living in a house here in Highlands Ranch. My costs go up every single year based upon my water, my utilities, maybe it's my HOA. So the same thing is happening here at Windcrest, where we look at all of our costs and say, in order to meet these costs, we're going to need to increase our monthly service packages in order to meet that. And so the contract on both 90 and 100 would say that we evaluate that every single year, and our goal is to keep that comfortable, but we also need to run the business well. On average, in the last 8 years that we've been open, our monthly service packages have increased at a rate of about 3%. Some years lower, some years higher, but 3% is the average, and that's what we share in our sales office. Is we want you to project, we want you to forecast out over time that if this is a place you'd like to live, you need to think about a possibility of about 3% each year. Again, some years being smaller and some being larger. We talked a little bit about financial inability to pay. That is on both sides, and I explained that. The refund form is the same. There is also a section that we have actually had people initial, and we've done this for years now, that would indicate, and it's section 8.6, if you want to jot that down. Section 8.6 is a section that says, once you decide to leave Windcrest or in the event of your passing, that when your keys are turned in, Windcrest will then bill you or your estate for 90 days of your monthly service package. And there are two little tiny words in the language of the contract that say we will bill you for up to 90 days. So I want to explain that a little bit. No matter if you're on 90%, no matter if you're on 100%, Windcrest will have 90 days of charges after your keys come in. This is maybe the one section of the contract that people hate the most, because you say, I'm not living there, I don't even have the keys, I'm certainly not using water, I'm not eating, why do I have to pay? And that's a good question. And the answer for that is that it allows Windcrest, as an operating 501c3 nonprofit community, to run at a much higher financial efficiency when we have a little bit of time to get in and refurbish that apartment home, and then find someone else who is able to move into that apartment home, so that as we're projecting our cash month after month, our forecast isn't going like this, but it's staying more stable. And we can say we know how much cash is coming in and we know when it's coming in. And it allows us the ability to be able to get the next person in to start that payment as well. It's not our desire to gain more money, it's really for so that we can run more efficiently. As we looked across the nation in writing this contract, and more specifically as we made the change to go to a 90% refundable entrance deposit, we studied contracts all over the nation of all different companies to see what they did. The lowest amount that we found for the same exact clause is 30 days in some other company, and the greatest amount was 180 days, 6 months. We're right in the middle, and the most common is 60 days, is what we found. And that's just, that was what we saw as we did our research. And so there's no one that's doing 0 days. No one has you turning your keys and then you're just done. Everybody has something, and we chose to go with that 90-day mark. Also, we chose that because that's what our 100% contract already said, and it made it kind of a seamless transition to do that. This is one area that we do have you initial because we never want to hide it. We never want it to be a surprise when the keys come in. Now we say, surprise, we're going to charge you 90 days. We don't want it to be that way, so that's why we have you initial that one specific section. This, however, is a section that I might encourage you more than any other section in your agreement, just to make sure that your family knows. Because the pushback on this doesn't often come from you. It comes from your son and daughter who says, I never do that. And we hear that a lot. I never heard that, I never knew that. And we don't want it to be a secret. We want to be very, very transparent about it. But it does help us to run our business even more efficiently. One other thing that does not change between 90% or 100% is that there are conditions in order for you to get your refund back. And those conditions are threefold. The first condition is we want to know that you have signed a unit release form. The unit release form, I think it's 2 pages long, it's not very long at all, but it indicates to Windcrest in a couple different departments. It indicates when you anticipate leaving Windcrest. So there was a lady that lived in Evergreen Crossing, and she met someone, and they got married, and they moved to Florida. She signed a unit release form, and she said, my day that I'm turning in my keys is going to be June 1st, let's say. What that does for Windcrest is it allows us to know we have an apartment that is becoming available. And from a sales perspective, let's start to work on someone who might be able to move into that apartment. From a refurbishing standpoint, let's start to order the carpet. Let's get our workers lined up to reoccupy or refurbish that apartment home. But it also allows us, again, to look at our cash flow and know, here's how many releases we might have. So those unit release forms are really helpful for us because they help us to, again, run our business very efficiently. That's one of the requirements in order for you to have your refund come back to you. It doesn't take very long to do it, and most of the time, it's not going to be any of you signing it. It's probably going to be your son or daughter signing it for you, saying, this is when we anticipate vacating the apartment and turning our keys in. The second thing is that we want you to have removed all of your possessions from the apartment home. That is your responsibility or your family's responsibility to do that. We reserve the right in the contract if you say, I'm not willing to do that, or your family won't do it. We actually reserve the right to take those possessions and put them in storage and build it back to you. Because we need to get in there and refurbish it and have somebody else move in. That has not happened at Windcrest to my knowledge so far, because you are typically a group of responsible people who have raised responsible kiddos. However, that's one of the things that we want to make sure that all possessions are removed. There are some situations where you have made an agreement with our treasure chest to have an estate sale in the apartment home, and that works well for everyone. And so that is a dispensation that you're welcome to utilize. There is a conversation that you need to have about that, though, as well. The third thing that you need to do is, and I said there were 3 things, there's actually 4 now that I'm thinking through in my head. The third thing is we want you to have seen and approved your final bill. The final bill is just that 90 days of your monthly service package. It's maybe that haircut that you had. It's the extra meals that you might have had in bistro. It is a host of different things. But you're able to look at that. You're able to say, here, I know what my charges will be, and I can see that, and I can approve that. And the fourth thing is kind of the one big trigger that triggers everything to happen, and that's the keys come back in. Once those keys are in, that sets a whole process in motion for us to kind of start the process of getting things ready. So number one, you signed a unit release form. Number two, you've removed everything from the apartment home. Number three, you've approved your final bill. And four, you've turned in your keys. That process there's no time frame that we have dictated to you that it has to take place. We've seen some people do all of that within a 24-hour period of time. We've seen other people do that in a 3-month period of time, or even longer. That's okay. It is up to you. But you know that until those keys come in, you're paying your monthly service package. And so that is your decision to be able to do that. But those are the conditions, no matter if it is 90% or 100%. There is also, the last thing that I made note of specifically in section 5 of our contract, it talks about ancillary services. I thought I would just touch briefly on this. What does that mean? Well, there are lots of services that Windcrest can provide, whether it's housekeeping, whether it's snow removal, whether it's extra meals, lodging in a guest room here. Parking is one of the things that is on that list. And so those are services available regardless of what your contract type is. There are 3 sections of this, or 3 clauses under this section. The second one is services available through outside providers. I wanted to touch on this one a little bit because you are never required to use a housekeeper from Windcrest. If you have a housekeeper that you love, you can have them come in and serve you in your home. I just wanted to make sure, what I hear oftentimes is people just want to have options. And so we want you to know you have options. We want to do it the best so that you choose us, whether it is through our home support services, whether it's through our housekeeping, whether it's because of our dining program. We want you to choose us, and that helps Windcrest do better anyway. However, I just thought it was important to share with you that you don't have to. Probably the biggest area that this pertains to is our medical center. How many people, will you just raise your hand, how many people here use the medical center as your primary care physician? I think the last number that I heard was 88% or 87% of the residents that live at Windcrest use our medical center. You don't have to. However, we wanted to make it as dang easy as possible for you to be able to use it. And they do an excellent job there. There is a program that you can use within the medical center called CarePath. And CarePath is a way that you can meet with the physician, they can have all of your medical records, and yet you can still see your outside physician. But at any time, if you need an acute service, or if you decide, I think I'm going to try them out, they have everything there already, and it's easy to switch over. For the people that have used the CarePath program, I think probably over 97% of people that use that CarePath program eventually, whether it be 1 month or 6 months, move over to causing our medical center to be their primary care doctor because it's just so easy, and they realize the care is great. However, you may have had a doctor 3 miles away from Windcrest for 40 years that you want to keep, and that's okay. And so we don't have any problem with that. The last little clause in this section under ancillary services is services that are not provided. And I'm not going to belabor this point, but there are some things that Windcrest is not able to do. We are not equipped to do it, or we've chosen not to do it because it does not benefit us from a long-term planning perspective. This hasn't come up anytime recently, at least in my recollection, but I remember a situation in the community in Houston at Eagles Trace that I worked. And there was a dear sweet lady that lived there for many years who needed psychiatric help. Windcrest and Eagles Trace did not provide psychiatric help. And so our commitment to her was, let us help you find a place that you can move to that will provide that service. And so there are some services that we do not provide at Windcrest, and I wanted to be clear about that because we do provide a whole lot, but there are some things that we just don't provide, and we don't want to hide that as much as help you find a place that really, really does. And sometimes people say, well, I thought that Mill Vista Lodge did everything, and there may be some things that they don't, or I thought dining was X, Y, and Z, and there may be some things they don't. Right now, I don't think our dining department buys every single piece of food organically. We've never committed to do that. If that's something that's really important, we can consider it. But that may be a service that we say we cannot provide 100% certified organic food. Does that make sense? So that's just a service that is not provided, and there is a little section here about that I thought I would touch on just a little bit as well. All right, we're halfway through, and I'm only going to spend a few more minutes, but I want to now talk about the differences. If you are on a 100% refundable contract, I'm going to talk to you first. If you have a 90% refundable contract, this is a super great time for a little cat nap. If you have a 100% refundable entrance deposit, what is different? What is unique about your deposit or about your agreement? The first and maybe the most important thing is how your refund will work. And if you have a 100% refundable entrance deposit, your refund comes upon resale of your apartment home. Someone else needs to take the keys on that apartment home and move into it in order for the refund to happen. The only exception to that is what I shared at the very beginning. If you are living when you move out and it's coming up on 180 days. If your apartment home has not resold within 180 days and you have passed, our sales team is still continuing to do everything that we can to get it resold, but we're not bound to give that deposit back until it does resettle. So that is one pretty significant difference. You'll hear the other side of that on the 90%, but we need to resell your apartment home if you have a 100% refundable entrance deposit in order for you to get your refund back. The other main difference is that if you are on a 100% refundable entrance deposit, on your final bill, you will find a refurbishing or a reoccupancy charge. The reoccupancy charge is what it costs for Windcrest to go in, to remove the pad, remove the carpet, paint all the walls, fill in all the holes, paint the walls, do a deep clean to all the hard surfaces, and make it brand new for the next person. That ranges based upon the cost of, or upon the square footage of your apartment home. That is something that you could know now. It's something that if you talk to Rachel in our general services department, she actually has a scale based upon your exact apartment home to give you an approximate amount as to how much that refurbishing fee will be. If you have decided that if you have that 100% refundable entrance deposit, on the unit release form that we talked about, there is a section where you can put a check mark next to how you want that refurbishing to be taken care of. You can say, put it on my final bill, and I will write a check, or my estate will write a check, or my final bill, and it will all be right there. What we see the vast majority of people do, it's not right or wrong to do it this way, but a little bit easier is to say, you owe me this much, just do my refurbishing and take it out of my entrance deposit and refund me this much. So you can do that if you prefer. The truth is, if you're writing a check for your final bill, it's coming out of your checking account, let's say. If you're putting it into or if you're taking it out of your entrance deposit, it's coming out of that. The way that I see it, it's either on this pocket or it's in that pocket. It gives you the option, though, to say, we're going to take care of it out of this account, or we're going to take care of it from the entrance deposit. Some, not many, but I have heard some say, I've actually set up an account in my bank, and I've indicated to my family, this account is for the refurbishing costs, for my end-of-life expenses, and they've kind of set aside some money for that very purpose. Again, it is completely up to you, but that is how that refund will work. If you have the 90% refundable entrance deposit, there is what is called in section 7.6, it is called the refund account. And the refund account is a pool of money, and as people are moving into apartment homes at Windcrest, and they are signing their 90% refundable entrance deposit agreement. They're writing a check and giving me that check. I take their funds and I put it into the refund account. The refund account is where our finance office will draw funds from to pay out refunds of those who are on the 90% refundable entrance deposit agreement. Not for the 100%, but for the 90%. That takes time to get a bigger pool because it's a relatively new contract type for us. And so that refund account is what allows us to go in and refund somebody who has left Windcrest. Why there's a benefit to doing that is that any apartment home that resells at Windcrest is what populates that refund account. Your apartment home does not need to sell in order for that money to be refunded to somebody else. This is the major reason why we moved to a 90% refundable entrance deposit, is because we wanted to have cash more quickly flowing in to be able to refund people as they're moving out. Our refund policy is first move out, first refunded. And so as money is flowing into that refund account, we're able to refund people who have moved out of Windcrest on that 90% refundable entrance deposit agreement. Windcrest, therefore, retains 10% of the entrance deposit. What in the world does Windcrest do with that 10%? Well, there is a refurbishing cost still. And so Windcrest will use part of the 10% to take that money and refurbish the apartment home. There most likely will be a difference. There will be a delta there between that 10% amount and how much was paid or how much we used to refurbish that cost. All of those dollars go into our capital expenditure bucket. And that allows all of Windcrest to benefit, because when we need new carpet, when there's a hole in the roof that we need to repair, it comes out of our capital expenditures. You know, after 8 years, if you lived here that long, or 3 years or 2 years, Windcrest has never issued an emergency assessment saying we need cash, so everybody that lives here has to pay an extra $100 this month. We've never done that, and our intention is never to do that. That's why we have a capital budget, so that we can tap into that and do the things that are very, very important to get done. And we prioritize that, and we work very closely with our RAC, our Resident Advisory Council, to make sure that we're using those monies in the ways that we should. And so that's why we do the 10% refundable, or the 10% that Windcrest would retain. One other very important thing to know about why we moved to a 90% refundable entrance deposit is that in the past, when we began almost 34 years ago, our forecast, our overlook as we looked into the future, was that houses in general in the nation would always be appreciating. And we had some great success with that, and then it stopped. And we realized that the cost of housing was actually depreciating in many or almost all of our markets. And we realized that issuing a dollar-for-dollar refund was still our commitment, but the toll was being paid by the community. Because if you paid me $300,000, but I can only sell it for $275,000, who's going to eat that $25,000 cost? We had to. And so the 90% refundable, one of the reasons why we moved to that is now we are not beholden to a market that is going up and down. We don't have to worry about what the housing market is doing. We still pay very close attention to that, I will share with you, but we are not hanging our business plan at the end of the day on what the market is doing. And that has made us as a company, it has made us as a local organization here at Windcrest much more financially secure and stable as we look into the future. And so that's a big delineation there. Those are the two biggest differences between the 90% and 100%. There really isn't a whole lot different, but the refund of the entrance deposit is the biggest, and that's oftentimes the most important. People want to know, how is that money going to be refunded and when is it going to be refunded? The goal for a 90% refundable, having that refund account at Windcrest, is that as we do this, probably for another year or two, we believe that we will be able to statistically share it takes us on average 47.5 days to issue the refund, or it takes us on average 79.4 days to issue the refund. We want to kind of get to a statistical average that we can share an approximation of here's when you might expect that refund to come back to you. There are always terms to that, whether you're living when you move out or whether you pass. Those are unique to yours, but that's the biggest difference between those two contracts. So let me stop there. We now have 20 minutes, and I'm a lot less loquacious today than I normally am. So we have about 20 minutes for you to be able to see if you have questions about your contract or about anything that I've said today that I would be happy to answer for you. And Miss Ann Anderson here is going to walk around and she'll give you the microphone. So hold your questions, she gives that to you. You can say it nice and loud so that everyone can hear for us.
I have a question concerning the 3-month, 90-day additional interest monthly service fee. Does that include all of the things you see on every bill? For instance, your philanthropy, your parking, your storage and so forth, or is it just the fee for the person and the second person?
So the question is, what is included? And I really appreciate that, because when you turn in your keys, you've also probably told us, I had a storage bin on the terrace level, I have a parking spot here. Those kinds of things go away as well. So you are not paying the full amount, and even more importantly, we feel like it's only fair that while you're living here and you go on a vacation or you are out of the community, you get that non-occupancy credit. Again, that starts at day 11 and goes forward. It's actually the same thing on those 90 days. Starting on day 11, we actually start to issue that non-occupancy credit. That's fair to you. And so you are actually getting a credit. You're not paying the full amount because you're not actually here. So if you have some of those extra things, you're just telling, or your family is telling us, I don't want to pay $25 a month anymore for my parking spot. I'm not paying $15 for my storage, and all of those things do go away. There was one other thing I was going to say about that. Oh, I shared earlier there were two little important words, the words up to 90 days, and I forgot to say why. Let me share that briefly. The reason we say up to is if I can find someone, and when I say I mean Molly, if Molly can find someone to move into that apartment home, and they take their keys for that apartment home on day 52, it stops. Now you've only paid up to 52 days of your monthly service package and not 90, because we found someone to move in earlier than the 90 days was over. And the great news is that happens more often than not right now. Part of it is because we have such a high demand, we have very, very low inventory, but we're finding that because we have the knowledge of when someone's moving out, and we can start to work on someone else to get ready to move in, we can really reduce those days, and that's a benefit to you as the outgoing resident. Yeah. You want to start back there and then work your way up? All right. We'll come back.
Is Windcrest committed to having a full service bank here?
The question is Windcrest committed to having a full service bank here? And we do today, but that doesn't mean that we always and forever will. I think about my experience overseeing our community in Dallas, and they found that it was no longer beneficial, and so they went away from having a full-time bank. It was actually more of the bank's decision than it was theirs. They were a much smaller community at the time than we are today. We, as an executive team, have not heard of or talked about, yeah, let's get rid of the bank. We think it's a great service. We know many people are happy with it, and so we'd love to keep it if it makes sense to our business and if it continues to make sense for you as well. So when I think about the 18 retirement communities that Erickson Living has built across the nation, the vast majority, I think there's only maybe 2 or 3 that don't have a full service bank right within their community. So as of today, yes. If a month from now we need to reconsider that, we will. But we think it's working well, and we're hearing from you all that you think it's working well also. Go ahead.
Jason, this is a follow-up question to a meeting in August of last year regarding access to the apartment upon death. And that was a lively discussion, and you all at the time suggested that we work on the very difficult process and see what you could come up with as far as streamlining the process to get into the apartment upon the second occupant step. Can you give us a status report, please?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So this is not something that you would find in your residence and care agreement. And so I knew it was going to come up, and I was prepared for the answer. So we're not going to belabor the point, and in fact, I know that we have committed to sharing more information about this specifically. I think we could probably spend an hour talking just about this. What I will tell you is there hasn't been, we don't have a form today that's, yep, we finally have it, but we are working on that. Our goal is to make it as simple as possible. We'd love to have a form that you fill out even when you move in, much like you signed this document and our refund form, so that there's never really a question. It's something that you could change if you needed to, all of those types of details. So there's not a definitive close to that. I think the loop is getting smaller, but we're still working with our corporate legal partners to really put something in place.
Clarification questions. The 90%ers, is that 10% that's held back used for the refurbishing? We will not have refurbishing costs. We don't pay for carpet or paint or things like that.
So the refurbishing, or the 10% that Windcrest retains, covers your refurbishing. Okay, we'll never see an additional fee for that.
And then maybe I wasn't paying good enough attention when you talked about the Colorado law, the first 180 days. That's when the refund has to be given.
The refund is due on day 180.
Yes.
So we owe that back. Yes.
So whether we're 10th on the list or 50th on the list or whatever. Thank you.
No matter where you fall, if it's coming up on day 180, we absolutely we owe it back. If you, within your lifetime. Yeah.
Once you have made a decision about where your refund goes, can you change that, and how do you go about it?
If you would like to change your refund form, right now you have it going to your trust, but now you want it to go to your beneficiary, you can change it. You could change it 5 times if you want. I worked with a couple who actually changed it, and they have 9 beneficiaries. And so you can do really whatever you'd like to do. You can do that by going into the administration office, and there are actually a few people in that office who can do that. The sales team can also do that. So one of those 2 front offices there, but you can change that at any time. It is absolutely a changeable document for you. Joe?
10% refurbishing fee, is that based on the original entry entrance fee?
Yes, the 10% is based upon the total cost that you paid right when you moved in. So if you paid me $300,000, worth the refund is $270. So it just depends on what your price for your specific apartment. Who else? Who has another question? Yeah.
Do you have a list of individuals or companies that your executor can hire to clean out your apartment?
We actually do have a list. There are probably a couple staff people that have a list. Rachel is one of them. Rachel Cook is her name. She works in our general services office. Some people call her a move-out coordinator or a reoccupancy manager. She does a couple of different things, but she has a list. The sales team maintains a list of people as well that we could give to you or to your family so that you would know what to do with that. The third person that I'm thinking of that I'm quite sure has some type of a list for you would be Craig Ellsworth in their Community Resources Office. They compile lists of all different businesses so that if you were to ever go to them and say, I just need somebody to do this, he can open a book and say, here's 10 people who we know do that. And maybe if we've had a relationship with them, we can share that with you too. So the question about, are they still paying the fee? It's only up to 90 days. 90 days is the absolute worst case scenario that anybody in this room would ever pay on a monthly basis after they have turned their fees in. And as far as the refund is concerned, There have been very, very few cases where we have not paid that deposit back within the year. Most often it's a lot faster than that. There have been some circumstances which it might have gone a little bit longer. However, I will tell you, I'm one of the people that gets calls from families saying, what is going on? We can actually show within our system how many times we're showing it, when we're showing it for events. I actually commit a part of my sales budget to staging apartment homes if they're taking a little bit longer to sell so that they look really great and somebody is more inclined to do it. And if I may briefly indulge myself on maybe fixing a little bit of a myth, some people say you don't care about the resale apartment homes at Windcrest, you only care about getting new people in. But I will tell you that as Craig and as Karen, as our executive team, and certainly myself included, as we think about our business plan for the year, last year we had to sell 169 apartment homes. A percentage of those are always going to be resale. And so part of my performance management or my performance evaluation at Windcrest is being made accountable for selling a certain number of resale apartment homes. We care deeply about it, and oftentimes I would almost say I care more about getting a refund back more quickly than I do about getting a brand new one sold, because there's nobody really waiting for that deposit that I know of except for our management company, Erickson. They're waiting for it, for sure, but we really, really commit to getting them back. And so we have conversations all the time about how long it's taking, how many times we're showing it. One of my greatest frustrations is when we've been working with someone and we've told them, you have 60 days to move in. So they put their house on the market, and on day 60 they get a contract, and we think that's really exciting. We're going to close in 30 days, they'll say. And then the contract falls through, and now 90 days of time went by where we were hoping they could move in, and they couldn't. And so now we're back at square one trying to start the process again. And that's frustrating for us, but that's the nature of our business too, and so we're accustomed to doing everything we can to get houses sold outside of Windcrest so that we can keep the ones sold inside as well.
What I wanted to, just, I know you probably told us, but it wasn't clear to me. When we say you pass on and you have to have your apartment refurbished, are you telling us that that's going to cost 10% of the original price?
So the answer to that is, if you are on a 100% refundable interest deposit, you're going to have a very specific refurbishing cost, and you'll see that appear on your final bill. If you are on a 90% refundable interest deposit, the amount will be the same, but you're not seeing it because it's coming out of that 10%. So if you have the 100%, you can see, here's what it is. We can still itemize it for you on the 90%, but it's going to be the same cost either way. But the additional, because it's not going to cost us a full 10%, like my example before. If you paid us $300,000 to move in, and I owe you $270,000 back, it is not going to cost me $30,000 to refurbish your apartment home. Let's say that it costs me 10 at the most. The $20,000 is what goes back to Windcrest into our capital expenditures. And so it's never going to cost somebody on a 90% refundable deposit the entire 10%. The numbers are the same, but in 100% you'll see you'll actually be charged for it, and 90% it's encapsulated in that 10% that Windcrest.
And just again, just to clarify, I'm on the 100%. When I pass away, it will cost 10% of my original price to refurbish, or
No.
it'll depend upon the size of the apartment and
Exactly right.
things like that.
Yeah, okay. One other little note that I wrote down that I remembered, there is a section of, and it doesn't matter if you're in 90% or 100%, if you have gone in and you've done something very significant to alter your apartment home, you might have an additional charge as well. The most common example that I can give you is if you were to go into your apartment home and say, I hate showers, I only want to take a bath, and you have one bathroom, and you rip out the walk-in shower and put in a bathtub, it makes it very difficult for the sales team to sell because the majority of people want a walk-in shower for safety. And so we would actually charge you to take the tub out and put it back into a walk-in shower. And so my comment about that is if you think you might be doing anything substantial to your apartment home, make sure you have the conversation with us so that we can say what you're doing is actually going to enhance that space, and we think you should do it, and we're not going to charge you to put it back that way, or we will charge you to put it back that way, just so you know before you start that work, okay?
The 90% refund is subject to the State of Colorado probate, is that correct?
I'm not sure I understand the
The
question.
probate of your estate, so that amount of money would not go directly to your heirs.
It depends on the refund form that you've signed. So if you have that money going back into your trust, we write a check to the trust of Jason Atwell, and it goes back into the trust. If you have it going to a beneficiary, when the refund comes available, it is going to go to son number 1, daughter number 2, son number 3, daughter number 4. If you have it go back to your estate, that's when that would go through probate court, and the terms of that would be met out by that. Yes.
Yes, Jason, under the auxiliary services 5.3 not provided, they miss hospice care. Doesn't Del Vista Lodge bring in hospice care?
Yes, and the key word is bring in hospice care. So there are several different hospice companies that we work with at Windcrest, both in Del Vista Lodge and in independent living. Those are outside service providers that we are very happy and fine with you bringing in to take care of your needs.
On a little different subject, how many people are on the priority list?
Yes, thank you. We are today higher on our waiting list than we have been since 2006. There are 544 households on the priority list. And as of this morning, we have 9 apartment homes that we can show. And it doesn't matter where. It's all over the community. There's a couple buildings that have none, but we only have 9 apartments that are even available to sell at this point. So high demand.
Another was just I have a question, and that is, what about the appliances when you refurbish?
Yeah, so the question is about the appliances. You'll notice I specifically left those off when we refurbish. And the reason why is because you're not being charged for those. Our commitment is to, if it's a great working refrigerator, we're not going to toss it out and buy a new one. There's no reason to do it, it's wasteful. We will keep it in that apartment home. A month after someone moves in, if it's not working correctly, then it becomes our responsibility to repair it or replace it. We do some shifting of appliances from place to place when we need to, but you are not being billed for appliances being refurbished because we always have made that a commitment that that's on us to repair and or replace. We are right at noon, so if I can, I'll just say this is something that I actually really enjoy doing. I feel like maybe only one person halfway stumps me on a question right back there. However, if you have additional questions, I hope you know our door is always open. Our email addresses, our phone numbers, we would be more than happy to continue to answer questions for you. If you have some right now, you're welcome to come up and I'll stay up here for a little bit. And I want to thank the FYI committee for allowing me to come today as well. So thank you. Thanks for coming.
Thank you, Jason.